Growing up, me and my friend used to always come up with game ideas together. We had all these documents that we draw up about specifically what kind of games we wanted to make and how we would make them and all the gameplay, but we never really did anything with it. We stopped at the idea phase because the thought of actually making a video game was too hard. I didn't know how to code. So I wish then that we have the tools that we have now, although honestly, some of the stuff did exist. But more than anything, I wish that someone had been able to tell me that you can just kind of start making video games without experience. That's what I ended up doing later anyway. Today we're going to be checking out a video where someone makes a very cool looking game in Scratch, which is not a programming language. It's all visual and it's a lot more easy to understand. So you can see just how much you can do without needing to know how to code at all. So let's go.
Scratch is crazy. Yes,
Very
the
true.
logo may look like it's a character from Peppa Pig, but it's actually a really cool game engine. It was created almost 20 years ago by MIT to help teach programming to kids and adults alike.
See, because this was definitely around when we were talking about making games. I just didn't know about it 20 years ago.
It uses a high-level, almost Lego-like visual scripting language, and though it's primarily used as an educational tool, it's incredibly popular.
Exactly.
So much so that this
is a video game. It's a video game. They're simple, but it's still a game. You can still play around with actual game development ideas. No code.
This is one of the most highly requested videos on the channel. The Scratchers have spoken, and yes, that's what they call themselves. So today I wanted to try Scratch out and see what I could create in
You can start without calling yourself a Scratcher. You don't gotta worry about it, okay?
a couple hours. I
Just
don't have a ton of free time today, and I figured this is the perfect test to create the ultimate game. So getting started, I hopped over to the Scratch website and created an account. That's why I ran into this weird glitch where it said the username that I had was available, but when I tried to actually sign up with it, it didn't let me. How rude. And after doing some intense research on the website, I found that there was a desktop version, so I quickly downloaded that and installed it on.
Yeah, that's what I would go with if I were you. If you have a PC that is a little bit above a potato, you should probably stick with the desktop version rather than trying to do this all through a browser.
My computer. Now that it was all set up, it was time for me to come up with a game idea. My initial thought was to create a kind of a Kirby Samurai style game where you have to press A before the other person does.
Nice.
But after playing around with the art, I knew that for the vector style I was trying to achieve, the artwork would just take way too long. So I scrapped it and moved on.
See, I'm kind of glad because that sounds like a really fun game, but also complicated vector art is something that you're not going to be able to do very well if you're starting out. So hopefully this next idea is a little bit more basic.
I had a couple other ideas like cutting fruit and controlling hands with WASD and arrow keys,
Fruit
but
Ninja,
you know what?
let's go.
I thought it was time for us to challenge ourselves and make something a little bit more intense. And that's when I came up with the idea of Ducky's Cozy Kitchen. Now the idea is very simple. It's you're a duck in the kitchen trying to cook, and these flies keep trying to pester you, so you have to swat them out of the air. Yeah, WarioWare, I plead the fifth. So I had a basic idea, and it was time for me to turn it into...
I mean, copying other people's games is a very good place to start. Don't get it twisted.
So I had a basic idea, and it was time for me to turn it into some artwork. And I found that for smaller projects, that creating the artwork first is actually just faster, because it helps you think about all the mechanics and things that you need in the game before you even start programming.
Yeah, because like as you are doing the art assets, you get an idea of like, oh, I could do this, I could do that. It really inspires you for what the game actually is. And it also helps you to be a little more concrete. And you see this art style is super basic. It's just some vector art. You got some blocks, some colors. Not too bad to do yourself.
Yeah, little did I know that this wasn't really going to be an issue with Scratch. Anywho, so I started to mash some shapes together, and voila, the perfect little duck in his perfect little kitchen. He's got a plant, he's got some toast, he's got whatever that is, and most importantly, he's got some flies. So I jumped back into Scratch, and it was time for me to start working on the programming part of it.
Right.
Now,
The hard
considering
part.
my last programming video was in C++, I feel like this was...
C++ is definitely a man's programming language, but probably not the one you want to start with if you're trying to pick up games and you're a little worried about it. Maybe stick to Scratch or like Blueprints and Unreal.
I feel like this was playing with a Fisher-Price toy. Within 5 minutes, I was able to add most of the artwork, and I was able to move his hand around. And the thing he's holding is actually called a turner and not a spatula. Yes, mind-blowing. Next, I added the flies, and I gave them the ability to fly around randomly through the room, and also I gave them an animation as well. After that, I worked on cloning the flies.
I do wish we got to see a little bit more of what actually goes into making these things work, but as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. There's not very many blocks here to do these basic things, and with most games on Scratch, you can actually go look at the code behind the scenes. So if you were interested in a game like this, you could just go behind the scenes and see how they built it.
After that, I worked on cloning the flies so that it would spawn in every random couple of seconds. So now you can have a kitchen full of flies. Great. This is also when I found out that the Scratch forums was down, which made my hunt for custom text even harder.
Really?
But this is when I discovered something. It's called a book, and it never goes down. And after
I'm not looking forward to the day in which we have internet-enabled books that need you to sign in to check the licensing before you can use it. Watch out, guys.
reading it,
Watch out.
yeah, I still was kind of clueless, but look at this cute mouse though. After that, I added a swatting sound effect when the flies got hit. I also made it so the turner, not spatula, would kind of glide to your last position every second or so.
Okay, but why Turner though? Now you just... Who calls it a Turner? Let's be real. Let's be real. Has anyone ever called it a Turner? That's a spatula. Come on, fam.
Made it so the turner, not spatula, would kind of glide to your last position every second or so. At first, I thought it was a really cool mechanic, and I don't know why, because it's not. It just feels like ice physics for your hands, and nobody wants that. After that, I added this very Nintendo sounding track that I found online, and I'm not gonna lie, this game is starting to feel pretty cozy.
Okay.
So it's time for me to add some more polish to the game. Like waiting a second or two before you can hit the fly, making this toaster pop randomly, adding some more sound effects. I even made it so the more flies you kill, the faster they spawn in. So eventually you just have this absolute...
See, it's probably a fun game mechanic, but that's literally nightmare fuel. You find a fly in the kitchen when you're trying to cook, you kill it, and then they start multiplying. It's like, what am I supposed to do? It's a false choice.
Madhouse of flies. And honestly, that's pretty much it. And I'm almost embarrassed to say, but the artwork took 4 times longer than actually programming the game. And now I see why Scratch is so popular. It's incredibly easy to use, albeit a little limiting. But if you're someone that's interested in just getting started with programming and playing around, I feel like it's the perfect framework or engine for you to use. Now,
exactly. And especially since he said he took so much time on the art, yeah, it's good, like he said, to throw some art together, and it's a good way to inspire you. But it means that you don't need to worry about having to make something that looks that good before you try out gameplay. Like, you can just do some basic stuff and then test out the game ideas that you had. I wish I'd done it when I was younger, because, yeah, I would have gotten a lot further along with actually trying out game ideas than just writing them on paper, you know?
Now, regarding Ducky's Cute Kitchen, there were a few more things I wanted to do. It would have been nice to be able to finish the clock with a font. I also could have given it a better ending, but my whole thought about a cozy game is it never ends. It's endless.
Right.
Endless flies. Forever. Anywho, if you want to poke around the code or play the game yourself, link will be in the description. Now, if you're saying to yourself, I wish I could learn how to code, well, fear not, because one of the most effective ways to learn is by using today's sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant has thousands of lessons.
All right, I can't speak for Brilliant, but learning a code is also not nearly as hard as you would think. But it's probably good to just start with something like Scratch. Start with Scratch, or even Unreal Engine, which is free, has an option to use blueprints, which are visual. You don't have to learn how to code. That way you can start messing around with game mechanics before you have to learn actual technical coding, which is a whole other skill completely unrelated to actual game development and design. So shout out to GoodGis, if that's how you say it. He offered, I think, is a great example of what can be done with no code and what can be done in literally just a few hours to make a video game, something that someone could actually play and enjoy. Because it's way more important to sit down and actually make something rather than just work on concept forever. So many games work great in concept and not in execution, so it's important to get out there and actually try your ideas and see if they work. Either way, thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate you. I hope you guys can finish all the game projects that you have written in your notebook. Right now, I'm working on a project that I'm really excited about that'll hopefully be out in a few weeks. So go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more of our videos. We appreciate you. We'll see you later.